we've got your Raiders covered.
Knock on wood if you're with me.
It's Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And now, here's your host, Scott Gulbransen.
Hey, this is Willie Brown of the Oakland Raiders. Wish all your mothers and your grandmothers and their mothers happy Mother's Day.
All right, welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 on this Mother's Day. And of course, we could not start a Mother's Day show without hearing from the late, great Willie Brown. So we appreciate that. And we'll always cherish that audio. And we'll use it every time we're on the air on Mother's Day. So we appreciate you being back with us. Busy show today. Of course, we're down to summer hours, only 1 hour today. But we have guest Lynn Bowden, of course, the third-round draft pick of the Raiders out of the University of Kentucky, as well as defensive backs coach Jim O'Neill, which is a great conversation as well. But let's get right into the big news of the week, and that, of course, was the NFL schedule. I bring in my co-hosts, Mr. Chaz Osborne and Kelly Kriner. And, guys, when you look at the schedule overall, not really any surprises, and I think overall probably one of the most equitable Raiders schedule in a long time. Chaz, what are you thinking from what you saw that was announced on Thursday?
Well, let's just start with a prayer. Praise the Lord. Let there be football this year. Amen.
There you go.
Okay. Hey, it's like Christmas for me. The schedule comes out. Obviously, we who they're playing already a month in advance. So you kind of look at that. Okay, that's a win. That's a win. That's a win. But then when the schedule comes out, you start looking at, okay, well, I want to go to that game. There's a couple of nice Monday night games. And I know the Raiders they're hosting 4 primetime games this year. First time ever. Those kind of things are fun to look at. There's a game on my birthday, those kind of things you look and planning your trip. So for me, it's like Christmas, man. I love seeing the schedule come in.
Yeah, and it's 2 of the first 4 games for the Raiders are on the road, including the opening week. They will be at Carolina in an early game there, 10 a.m. Pacific time on CBS. And then, of course, the big Allegiant Stadium home opener against Drew Brees and Kelly's favorite coach with the New Orleans Saints on, of course, Monday Night Football on ESPN. And then they go back to the East Coast. So out of the two out of the first 3 weeks, Kelly, the Raiders are on the East Coast, but they get that big home game against your boy Sean Payton.
Yeah, that's it's not a surprise that week 2 is the Raiders' kind of home opener on Monday night because everybody's going to watch the first Monday night games. So the NFL puts the Raiders' new stadium on the second night. So you're going to get that casual fan that may or may not have watched it to check in and see the new stadium. So it's a smart move by the NFL to have the Raiders open up the second Monday night instead of having them on the first Monday night where they have the 2 games that they have in the past.
Yeah, because you're right. You're right about that, and it's interesting because a lot of fans, I think, Raider fans, from the reaction I saw on social media was, how could they not open the season with our stadium and all that kind of stuff? But you bring up the point that is really salient around that, and that is, look, have it be its own thing, right? So you get that first week, which everybody's excited about it, everybody's watching, but now it kind of gives it a little bit of a second week thing. It also gives the Raiders, even though they'll be playing some preseason games at Allegiant Stadium, the last 2, as a matter of fact, against the Cardinals and the Rams, it also gives the stadium crew time to throw 2 events, including a concert if that happens, and then it gives them time to kind of adjust and fix anything in the venue because, as you open a venue, soft opening, especially with preseason games, you're going to find issues, and so to be able to fix those before your big regular season debut, I think was also smart by the NFL. But you guys look at this too, and then they come home and play the Bills in week 4, by the way, and then they have bye in week 5. But you look at the Raiders, and again, I think this is the best schedule the Raiders have had in several years. 3 of their last 4 games of the season, when you're usually in that, hopefully for them, that playoff stretch where you're trying to get into the playoffs, they have 3 of their 4 final home games, games at home, which should help them. But a lot of East Coast games, they go to New York to play the Jets for the second year in a row. I don't know that I've seen that in a while.
Yeah, there's always going to be a kind of a schedule quirk or something like that. I think the fact that when the schedule came out and there wasn't something that popped out right off the bat for Raiders fans to complain about was a good sign. Because, when you look at last year's, it just hits you in the face how bad the schedule was. And when you look in the past, the fact that they're not in Kansas City in December, which is the first time it's been like that for a long time. The schedule has set up for them to make a playoff run this year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
And I thought the NFL did a solid job with the schedule after kind of, giving it to the Raiders last year, but that was kind of their fault for not having a stadium replace a play. They didn't know what was going to happen. So I thought the NFL came back and did a good job setting up the Raiders. And like you said, showcasing the new stadium on, opening up on Monday Night Football. That's a real nice feather in their cap. And like you said, really the Jets and the Broncos are the only cold weather games, that they probably going to see this year. And then 3 home games, like you said, in a row in December. It's a pretty favorable schedule.
Yeah, and I think so. You're right. Cold weather games, it looks like maybe November 1st in Cleveland. It all depends on the weather there. Sometimes that time of the year, it can be pretty seasonably warm, or it can be cold. So they do that. But guys, when you look at this, and Chaz, when you look at the home schedule particularly, you see, you probably won't see Kyler Murray in that week 3 preseason. You may, though. But when you look at the regular season, you got Drew Brees coming in, then you got Josh Allen, one of the young quarterbacks in the league, then you got Tom Brady, of course, the division games with the Broncos, and then Mahomes and the Chiefs. You have Rivers coming back with the Colts, and then finally that last game in December towards the end of the month there. Probably by that time, Tua Tagovailoa will be the starting quarterback, maybe, of the Dolphins. So, I mean, you look at this home schedule, and it's pretty cool that you're going to be able to see all this talent coming through here. I mean, it is the NFL. If you're a starting quarterback in the NFL, for the most cases, you're a pretty good talent. But exciting to be able to see all these guys come in the first year in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we got a really good. It looks. I mean, it's fun for me. It's fun every year. I love looking at it, and then I kind of go through my wins and losses and. You kind of break it down. What's the season going to look like? 8-8, 9-7. I've got them at maybe a solid 9-7. I put down the guaranteed wins, and I've got 6 guaranteed wins. I got 3 guaranteed losses. I've got 7 50-50 games, which is usually pretty high for me. I can usually give more wins and losses just a couple of 50-50 games. So if they do that 6-3, and then they split the 7 50-50 games, that could be a 10-6, 9-7 area. And with that extra wild card spot this year, it's a good chance that they get in.
Well, consensus has, I think a lot of folks kind of have the Raiders pegged between 8-8 and 9-7. And Kelly, when you look at the schedule, to me, it's really hard to make any kind of predictions until they're in camp and you kind of get a sense for where the teams are at. But when you look at the schedule, Kelly, clearly, that there's a stretch where they go against 4 teams that were in the playoffs last year. But is there any part of this schedule where you can see, man, that's going to kind of be where the rubber meets the road? They're going to have to play really well if they're going to put themselves in a position to make the playoffs in 2020?
Not really, to be honest with you, just because, you mentioned they have that stretch where they play 4 playoff teams from last year. But every year there's a handful of teams that made the playoffs last year that doesn't make it this year. There's always a lot of turnover in the NFL. So whenever you're judging the schedule, and I know they do strength of schedule and everything off of last year's record, we should know by now that gets completely thrown out this time of year,
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, but go ahead, finish up.
I was going to say, whenever you look at that, obviously, when I look at a schedule, I look at your conference games more than anything, because your conference is going to be where you're going to be, try to win the conference, get in the playoffs that way. So, it's not like last year where you had that big road stretch. It's not like in this year, it's not like you've got a big, in the past you've had 4 or 5 conference games in a 6-week period or something like that. So you're not really seeing that condensed chunk where you really got to hit this. I think it's a well-balanced schedule.
Well, and if you look at to your point about the conference situation, Kelly, and the importance of conference games, especially down the stretch, of course, you're going to have division games, right? But when you look at the Raiders, the month of December into their last game at the beginning of January, it's all AFC. You're at the Jets, you're home against the Colts, which is going to be a tough game. Then you have the Chargers at home, the Dolphins at home, and the Dolphins are an improving team. And then you go on the road against the Broncos. So that's going to be, all AFC games, including your out of division games. So to me, that's why to have 3 or 4 of those at home is a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You want to end that. Yeah, you definitely want to end the season at home if you can, because like you said, that's where you're hopefully making your playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you get that home crowd, you get that advantage. Hopefully there is a crowd in there, because that's a huge advantage having that. But the Raiders played meaningful games in December last season, and they got a little taste of what it's like, and then they're going to build off that experience.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chaz. It's kind of got, you're right. You got a little bit of taste of it. And even talking to the players we've interviewed here on the show, they've all said the same thing. We need to learn how to finish. So clearly they understood that they were kind of getting close to that point where they were actually playoff contenders, at least from a wild card perspective, and they just couldn't finish because of injuries and other things. So it's good to know that they've had that experience and at least get to have those 3 or 4 games at home. But going to be exciting. People are complaining about ticket prices already, but folks, demand will be high. It is Las Vegas. It is a different market. It is a new stadium, and it's going to stay that way. Unless the Raiders fall off and get off the rails this season, I think you're going to see high prices on that. All right, we're going to step aside for our first break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Raiders' third-round draft choice, number 80 overall, Lynn Bowden. Lynn, of course, is going to play running back for the Raiders, we hear, but I'm sure he'll be all over the place. We'll talk to him about that and more. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas. Hope your Mother's Day is going well. We're going to go out now on the Newsmaker line, and we're excited to bring in one of the most exciting players in the draft. Even if he went at number 80, doesn't matter. Lynn Bowden Jr., who the Raiders selected in that third round, played quarterback at Kentucky, played wide receiver at Kentucky, and is also going to play running back for the Raiders as they announced him as a running back draft pick back in April at the draft. But Lynn Bowden now joins us. Lynn, we appreciate you for joining us, and congratulations for being a new Raider. Welcome.
I appreciate y'all for having me on, man.
Hey, man, listen, I know it's early, but how has life changed for you just by being drafted where you were and kind of being one of, I think, the stories of the NFL draft?
You know, I like, you know, it's just a stumping ground for me, you know, just changing my life and everybody's around me life. You know, it's just, I'm the first one to do it out of my family, so it's a blessing. It's just a blessing.
Yeah, and let's step back for a minute. Go back to draft day. You get that call from the Raiders. Tell me first of all, kind of how it felt for you, and then also at that point, did they tell you, "Hey, we're going to have you play running back"?
You know, it felt great. You know, I had all my family here. You know, we always celebrating, and you know, Coach, he just told me to trust him and whatever he's gonna do, and he said, you know, what he wanted me to do, and I said, let's do it. You know, I'm a ball player, so I'm gonna do anything I got to do to get on the field, and you know, just help my team out. So.
Well, and Lynn, that versatility, I mean, of yours, being the kind of athlete you are, you know, anyone gives you a challenge, you kind of step up and say, yeah, I'll do it. And of course, that happened to you at the University of Kentucky. You're there, you're playing wide receiver, you're projected to be one of the top wide receivers in the draft, and then they ask you to play quarterback. Talk about that decision for you. Was it a tough decision for you at all, even though you had people in your ear telling you, hey man, if you do that, you might slip in the draft, you might not be the guy that everybody wants to look at that position instead? Or was it for you always about the challenge and always about team first?
Well, I just wanted to win. And if I gave us the best chance to win, you know, I was going to do that. So it was never a doubt in my mind that I didn't think that I couldn't do it. So I just did it.
Mm. Yeah, and you played quarterback in high school too, so it wasn't like it was a position foreign to you. But then once you got into it, I know from reading a lot about you and hearing your coaches talk about you, you learn very, very quickly. Talk about that for you as far as now you're about to head in the NFL. I'm sure you've heard Coach Gruden's system and his offense can be complicated, especially the terminology. I mean, they've done videos for NFL films on it, right? How about that for you? Are you looking forward to that new challenge and learning all that you can about that NFL offense and what Coach Gruden has in store for you?
Definitely. You know, I know it's challenging in the process of even just learning right now. So, you know, I'm taking it step by step. You know, I'm picking up on things that I need to pick up on, and you know, I'm really just ready to get this show rocking. You know, just show the world, you know, in our new city what they can expect out of me. You know, when I get my chances.
Yeah, and we talk about versatility with you as a player. And again, we're talking to Lynn Bowden, the third-round draft pick of your Las Vegas Raiders. And Lynn, that versatility now, you go back 5 or 6 years ago in the NFL, it wasn't valued as much. But right now, you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Taysom Hill, you look at all these other guys who are multi-position players and contribute in all sorts of ways. You're at the right time in the right place. Are you looking forward to being used in different ways and finding new ways to use your ability to help the Raiders win?
Definitely. I know they're going to put me in the right positions, and, it's all generally up to me once I touch the field of how I do and what I do. I'm ready for all the challenges that's going to come and everything that's standing in my way, because a lot of things that are in the way are meant to be broken down. So.
Now, as you said, Coach Gruden has told you, hey, be ready, trust us, which is exactly what you did with your coaches at Kentucky with Coach Stoops and everyone, especially after, you had that start at Kentucky, you weren't so certain. And I know I listened to your story about the conversation you had with your mom and Coach Stoops, and he said, hey, trust us, we're going to get there, be patient. When it comes to the NFL and the fact that you might be playing in some different positions than you even did in college, i.e. running back or at the joker position, for you, patience again. Are you ready for that at the NFL level as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a grown man's business, and that's what I'm ready for. I know what I'm getting myself into, and I know it's going to be a lot of challenging things that I got to overcome. And I'm ready for it. My mindset right now is just I'm still broke, so I need to be able to feed my family. So.
Well, yeah, and I was going to mention that too. I'm a father, and I know you are as well. And talk about how that changed your outlook, not only on life, but on football. Having Lynn the third, right, your son. Talk about him and the influence he's had on your career and how that affected you getting into the NFL.
Man, it's just without him, I probably wouldn't even be here talking to you on the phone or getting drafted. It's just. Him, he shaped me into my ways of growing up and being a man. I got somebody to set example for, and somebody to provide for, and it's just he made me go harder every step of the way.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's always good. That's the thing I always tell people, as humans, we can be selfish sometimes, but when you start living for others and you feel that weight of responsibility on you, it actually pushes you to new heights. And I know that's happened with you. Now, listen, when we talk about the Raiders, you're joining a franchise that is storied. I mean, listen, the Raiders, it doesn't matter where you live, where you're from, or who your favorite team might have been growing up. The Raiders are the Raiders, of course, Al Davis. And then you look at all of the great athletes that have played for the Raiders, especially on offense. When you look at wide receiver, including the Tim Browns of the world, including Fred Biletnikoff, and all these different guys who've worn that silver and black. How much of a pleasure is it for you to think about that you're going to be part of that storied history now, following in those guys' footsteps?
I just, man, it's like I said, when I won that award, it's like my high, man. So I'm ready to. I don't know. I can't really guarantee because I really don't know how the things are going to be. I just want to make a mark on the game of football itself. So I'm ready for everything, and being compared to them is something, unique. And it's just a blessing to be able to just be compared to people like that. So.
Yeah. Now, have you had a chance? I know you guys had your first meetings with the team last week. Have you had a chance to talk to folks like Derek Carr and some of the other guys on the offensive side of the ball?
Oh yeah, definitely. Spoke with Derek Carr a couple of days ago. I feel like me and his relationship is going to be great. Just some of my teammates and all that. So I feel like I'm going basically to another Kentucky team that's everybody's hungry. No one's satisfied with being at the position they're in, and I feel like we're all just ready to go.
Again, we're speaking with Lynn Bowden, the talented, versatile, going to be running back / wide receiver / we'll see where else they put him for the Las Vegas Raiders this year. And Lynn, you talk about, you hail from Youngstown, Ohio, and we know a lot about your upbringing and how you really wanted to work hard to improve your life and the life of your family. And now you're going to be coming to Las Vegas. Have you ever been to Las Vegas and heard about what it's like? Of course, not the downside, not the vices per se, but living out here in the desert.
Yeah, I was out there a couple times when I was younger. That was when I was playing basketball back in the day. But I ain't much of a go outside guy anyways. I'm a stay at home guy. So most of the things, like, I'm going to enjoy my life. Most of the things I probably would never get to see because I really don't like to do much. I know I'm there for business, and that's what I'm trying to take care of.
That's great. And I'm sure you've been welcomed warmly by Raider Nation, which I believe is the best fan base in the NFL. They really stand behind their guys, and they're really welcoming. I'm sure you felt that. Now, when you look at playing on the Raiders, you're going to be in the AFC West. You're going to be with a lot of guys that I'm sure you've watched on Sundays. When you look at that and the challenge ahead for you, and when we can finally get you guys back on the field with all this virus stuff happening, when you look at that and the competition you're going to be facing, what's most exciting about you from a challenge perspective?
I get to go against some of the best of the best, and I'm ready for that. I'm ready to just go against guys that's considered the best and prove myself to the world.
Yeah, and you, I know that sitting there waiting to be drafted on draft night, knowing the kind of talent you have, knowing the kind of seasons you've had at Kentucky, were you at all frustrated? I know you've said before in interviews, "Hey man, I got a chip on my shoulder. It doesn't go away. It's kind of what drives me." Did you feel that again on draft night, going into seeing that first round go, and then of course second round, and then you come up in the third?
Definitely. I was just anxious and ready, just to be called, to see where I'm going to start my next journey at. And, it was a life moment, changing moment, So it was just a blessing to have my family there and, everybody that was supporting me that was there. So,
yeah. No doubt. And when you look at coming out here and being a member of the Raiders, if you had to tell Raider fans out there who are listening to us now, kind of, what is it about Lynn Bowden that they're going to love most? What would you tell them?
Just my heart and the way I compete.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's great. And I'll tell you what, I know we're all excited about seeing you out here playing in Las Vegas. We can't wait for you to get back on the field when you guys can do that. And we certainly appreciate you spending some time with us today, Lynn. And we'll meet you when you get out here, man, when you're out at the new practice facility in the new stadium, which I know you haven't probably had a chance to see yet, but when you get out here, you're going to love it, man. Thanks again for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
All right. Once again, that was Lynn Bowden, the draft pick of the Las Vegas Raiders. Really exciting kid. Looking forward to him. Really got his head on straight. He is a focused young man, a young father, a young talented football player, and I think Raider fans are really going to enjoy him. And I know that Coach Gruden and Mike Mayock are going to enjoy how they can fit him into their system and do so many different things with him. I mean, it's going to be phenomenal to watch how they position Lynn in the system and how he's able to make a difference on offense for the Raiders. And I'm sure Derek Carr is smiling knowing that guy's going to be lined up all over the field. Be pretty fun. But again, thanks to Lynn Bowden. We appreciate him being with us today as well. All right, we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to be joined by another special guest, and that is the defensive backs coach of the Raiders, Jim O'Neill. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140.
Hey, this is Rodney Hudson. You're listening to Silver and Black Today.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. And one of the areas of focus for the Raiders this offseason was bolstering its roster at defensive back. They signed veteran safeties Demarius Randall and Jeff Heath, and in the draft, nabbed two really good ones in cornerbacks Damon Arnette from Ohio State and Amik Robertson from Louisiana Tech. And perhaps no one could be happier than the man who joins us now on the phone, the guy who has to coach those defensive backs, Jim O'Neill. And Jim joins us now. Welcome to Coach. Welcome to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140, and welcome to Las Vegas.
Thanks, Scott. I'm fired up to be here. Like I told you, we moved here 4 weeks ago, and we love everything about Las Vegas so far. So looking forward to the future here.
Yeah, the city is on fire for the Raiders, and despite what's going on with the bigger issues in the world with the pandemic and all that, as soon as that starts to settle down and we start to return to normal, I know Las Vegans are going to be really excited about football and, of course, Raiders football. Now, Coach, heading into the draft, as the position coach, talk to me about a little bit the input you gave Coach Gruden and Mike Mayock about the needs and the qualities you really wanted in the players should they they draft at that position?
Well, we spend more time here with player evaluation than any other organization that I've been with. And with Mike Mayock and John Gruden, you better know all the guys in free agency, and you better know all the guys in the draft, because those guys do such a great job with talent evaluation and just knowing the league and knowing college football. It's amazing the amount of personnel that those guys are able to talk about at a high level and the information that they get on guys. So as a position coach, you got to be on top of it. The way we pretty much structure it is once the season's over, January, February, and March is totally dedicated to player evaluation, whether it's free agents or it's draft players. And then you really start to get into your scheme eval and football stuff starting April 1st. But I would say just for me, the overall evaluation, it's usually 4 to 5 hours of tape on the guy from college. You know, you try to get to know the guy at the combine. I like to be down on the field so I can see how these guys interact with each other, who's kind of the lead dog, who shies away. You evaluate all the all-star stuff, especially if it's a smaller school guy. So you can, so you get a feel for how he's playing against better competition. We're big on the character eval, so we're constantly calling position coaches and coordinators and people that you know that might have coached the kid. And then we get on the Zoom meetings, which was a little bit unique this year. And, you know, you install some defense and you see if they can regurgitate it back to you. And then you got to write a lengthy report, which I think all football coaches hate. They'd rather just speak off the cuff. But, you know, there's a lot that goes into it, you know, the evaluation process. But, you know, before all that, you know, for us, it's special to be a DB for the Raiders. You know, if you look at the history, just at corner with guys like Charles Woodson and Nnamdi Asomugha, Willie Brown, Lester Hayes, Mike Haynes, just to name a few, or you go to safety and Jack Tatum and George Atkinson and Van McElroy and Rod Woodson and Ronnie Lott at the end of their careers. So to me, it's really special to be a DB for the Raiders, and it's big shoes to fill. And I tell the guys, everybody that we decide to join that room, that it's different. It's different than being a DB anywhere else in the NFL. I mean, you're a Raider. It means something different to be a Raider DB. And the biggest compliment that we could give a guy is that he has Raider traits.
Yeah.
And we could get into that if you want. But,
you
know, if we start an evaluation off and a guy has Raider traits, Mike Mayock and John Gruden are going to perk up in their chairs, because those are the guys we're looking for.
Yeah, and you've been I was going to say, Coach, you guys have been very consistent in saying that, and I think that sometimes for those of us who cover the team gets lost on us, because you know the two kids that you drafted, Damon Arnette and Amik Robertson. Now, Amik Robertson was one of my favorites, honestly, and so I knew a lot about him. Damon Arnette, I think for me, to be frank and to be honest, when you drafted him, it was a surprise for me, and that probably was because I was focused on Jeff Okudah like everybody else, and I didn't see him, and I didn't really pay as much attention to them. But both those guys seem to have those traits you're talking about.
Yeah, and when we talk about those traits, I think it's we're looking for guys that love football, not what football brings to them. You know, if they had to play a doubleheader, they would love it. You know, they're not worried about the money. They're playing the game because they love to practice, they love to meet, they love to play. I think that's where it starts and ends. We want guys that are ultra competitive. And I think when you look at a guy like Damon Arnette, if you put him in a room with 15 other corners, and he's the one coming out of that room. You know, if there's one man walking out of that room, if you say, hey, you guys are all in it for yourself, somebody's got to leave this room alive, he's the guy walking out. He's just got that dog, that toughness, that competitiveness that you love. And that's what kept bringing us back to him. You're looking for guys with a swagger, guys that are tough mentally and physically. They're going to play through injury, guys that are great teammates. And to me, you know, you can always tell that when you watch tape, when guys make plays, are the other 10 guys running over to celebrate with them. I mean, that's how you know guys are great teammates. And then the last thing we look for, and it's a really big thing that we're going to emphasize, especially on defense, is we look for guys that are going to race to the football with violent intentions. And we don't want a coach effort. We want guys that want to get to the ball. And to me, the guys that we picked up in free agency and the guys that we got in the draft possess those traits. And I'm in a great situation right now because everybody that's in my room right now, I had a chance to go to bat for, and I had a chance to pick them.
Yeah.
So I didn't inherit anybody in that room anymore. So this is the first time in my third year now going into it with the Raiders where I can say I've been a part of handpicking everybody in this group.
Well, and that's Coach, that's what I like about the team overall too, is on offense and defense is sort of, yes, there's still some few players that were there when Coach Gruden came in and Mike Mayock came in, but overall it's mostly to where you're at, which is, hey, these are guys we brought in, they fit our mold, they fit the culture we want to build within the Raider organization as it is today. And that is a little bit of a throwback, of course, with modern thinking and what you guys are doing there. But I'll tell you, we talked to Amik Robertson, and Amik said, I want to be legendary. And that was not boastful. See, you could read that statement and say, hey, this is a kid who's just got an ego. No, he wants to work hard. He has a lot to prove. He feels like his stature was held against him and all that kind of stuff. Those type of guys too, Coach. And, we talked to Lynn Bowden earlier in this show. Same thing on his side. Like people say, well, he can't be this and he can't be that. And for those guys like Amik and Damon Arnette, those are the intangibles that you can't really always see on tape. That's the kind of thing you're talking about when you talk to kids at the combine and such, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're looking for guys that have that chip on the shoulder. I mean, Amik Robertson's been the best football player on the field probably since he's been in Pee Wee or Pop Warner football at age 5.
Wow.
And everybody's told him his whole life that he can't play at LSU because you're not tall enough. You're not going to be a first, second, or third round pick because you're not tall enough. And he's got an unbelievable chip on the shoulder. And to go with that, he's one of the most instinctual football players I think I've ever evaluated.
Wow.
He's got unbelievable ball skills, and he's an ultra competitor. So, I mean, you put all that together, and you're excited about the guy. And then the one thing that I spend a lot of time on, Scott, is a lot of guys just look at height when it comes to corners. We're really big on length. So what is their wingspan with their height? So for me, Amik Robertson's a +5. So his wingspan is 5 inches longer than how tall he is. Mm-hmm. So really, he's like a 5'10 and a half, 5'11 corner.
Yeah, and he's a ball hawk too, man. He just finds the ball.
He is. And you, like, to me, at that position, especially at nickel, you need to have length to be competitive at the reception point.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be on the back hip of some of these receivers.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, no, I love the draft class. Again, we're speaking to Raiders defensive back coach Jim O'Neill. And Jim, you look at the existing roster now. We talked a little bit about the young guys, and not including those rookies. You've added veterans like Demarius Randall, like Jeff Heath, and then you have guys returning. Jonathan Abram, who's kind of like a rookie because of the injury in one game. Then you have LaMarcus Joyner, Trayvon Mullen, just to name a few. Do you feel roster rich at this point now that you have so many different guys who are good in different areas and you can move around?
No, I think we're talented. I don't think we're roster rich. I think that in today's NFL, you got to be willing to spend money, and to invest high draft picks in the secondary. I mean, and we all know it. We got to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. So to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you need guys that can rush and cover. So we've invested some money and we've invested some draft picks and guys that can cover. And the talent is there. The potential is there. We haven't proven it yet. And as a group, we need to prove it together. So until that happens, I'm not going to say we're roster rich because we're going to keep adding guys to each position group to create a competitive situation until guys establish themselves.
Yeah, and I love that approach, and I think Coach Gruden's always had that mindset, which is it doesn't matter if you have a starter and he's a starter. I mean, even look at a quarterback this year. You have Derek Carr, but you bring in Marcus Mariota, not to replace Derek Carr, but it's always good to have. I don't care what job you're in. I don't care if you're the best plumber in the world, you're the best teacher in the world. If there's someone there to challenge you, you always get better, and I love that approach that you guys are doing on this roster. Now, I have to ask you one question that we get from our listeners and our readers all the time. and that is about LaMarcus Joyner. A lot of folks, a lot of the Twitter GMs and Twitter coaches out there, they feel like LaMarcus should move in out of the safety position back to slot corner. Is he going to be at safety? Or are you guys in the position now where you're going to say, hey, look, we're going to put guys in different spots, see where they gel, see where this roster comes together, and then make a decision?
Well, no, LaMarcus Joyner, when we went out and got LaMarcus Joyner in free agency, we thought he was a difference maker at the nickel position. So for us, he's a nickel first, okay? And then this year, we are also training him to play some safety. Okay. So,
got it.
but I mean, our nickels on the field, 80% or more of the snaps. And it's probably the hardest position to play on the field, because when you play as much man or match zone coverage as we do, receivers have three-way goes on you. And we ask our nickel to get involved in the run fit. So it's as hard of a position as we have on our defense. It takes somebody that's really, really football smart, and it takes an unbelievable amount of athleticism, because in critical downs, that's where the ball's going. So that's like playing third base in Major League Baseball. That's the hot corner.
It's a good analogy. Yeah, and I think that's the thing too, that a lot of fans, and God bless them, it's, not everybody gets into the X's and O's of football, but in your system and how you run that system, positions sometimes have different meanings depending on what you're doing. And you're talking about the nickel and the importance in your system of the nickel. It makes a lot of sense. Now, one of the young guys too that we talk a lot about here on the show, because we thought towards the end of the year really came on strong, was of course Trayvon Mullen. What does Trayvon need to do going into this preseason, this camp, when you guys finally get these guys on the field? What does he need to do to make that next step that you want to see him take in year two?
I think a lot of it's going to be mental. And just with the almost 2 weeks now of Zoom meetings, I think he has the confidence now. He's done it. He's had success against some big-time receivers, established receivers in this league. He was a guy that was at the top of our board last year, and we couldn't believe we got him where we got him. And we knew probably about halfway through training camp last year that we were going to have something special. And that's the reason that we ended up trading away Garyon Conley, just because we knew we had something there in Trayvon Mullen. But I think now it's a lot of split recognition. What does this release mean? What's my game plan in press? How should I attack this guy? I think a lot of it now is more the mental stuff. He got his hands on a lot of balls last year as PBUs. I think just that extra split second, whether it's gathering pre-snap information or taking what he's learned from film or in the meeting room and applying it to the field, that's going to mean interceptions, or if completions are now going to be PBUs for him. Just he needs to find a way to get a half step quicker mentally, because he has it all physical.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, it's hard because you can't change the physical necessarily, but you can work in the classroom and work with the player mentally. So that's a great sign. Now, before we let you go, Coach, when you look at all the new pieces you got, coupled with what you had on the roster already that you're very happy with, and that you continue to develop, what's going to be the biggest challenge to get that room cohesive? Now, you already established a culture. You've been there a few years. You got the veterans there to kind of lead the younger guys along. But what's going to be the biggest challenge to get that group to gel together as you head into the season?
Yeah, well, like you said, we got John Abram in the room, who nobody really talks about anymore, but he's our follow me or else alpha dog. So he really sets the culture for our room. And that's why we drafted him. And I love everything about the guy. I do. I think he's going to have a big time year. I think that the biggest thing for these guys right now is just creating a chemistry. I mean, you can buy a bunch of really good DBs or great DBs. It's been done in this league, and they've played awful football. These guys got to gel together. It's the nonverbal and the verbal communication that has to come along. They got to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they got to learn how to play together.
Yeah.
And right now in our meeting rooms, the challenge for me is how can I talk less and get these guys talking more to each other virtually. I do think we got some special things going on in the room. The first 10 minutes, they bust each other's balls or they play Madden with each other. And, they're doing a lot of stuff. Like right now, Demarius Randall and John Abram VRBO'd, or they call it Airbnb a house out here in Vegas, and they're living together for a month. So,
I love it.
There's a lot of cool stuff going on within the group. We got a bunch of guys, before all this stuff hit, that were working out together down in Dallas. It's a close group. It's just we got to make them football close, and we're going to lose. We're probably going to lose, anywhere between 400 and 500 reps if this thing doesn't get started back up with this off season.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a challenge this training camp, but we're not going to use that as an excuse.
No, and
Damon Arnette was drafted with the expectation that he was going to compete for a starting job. Nobody's going to want to hear about that he didn't have an off season.
Right.
Week one, whoever we're going against, if he's out there, he's going to be expected to perform. It's the same thing with Isaiah Johnson in year 2 and Keyshawn Nixon in year 2. And they're going to expect Demarius Randall to know the defense and Jeff Heath to know the defense. So, and then you got guys like Eric Harris, who's a vet who will stay on a Zoom call or call a guy after the Zoom call and just explain it to him like a player. And those guys are so valuable because it means so much to them. It's not about me. It's about the group, and it's about you understanding it because I know you can help us win football games.
Yeah, and Coach O'Neill, I love what you're doing there, and I think you're putting that group together, the right personalities, the right amount of talent, and it's always a work in progress. I know that, but coupled with the help you've gotten at linebacker and up front, which helps you guys out back there too, I think it's going to be a pretty special year for you guys, a big year of growth and a huge step forward. And Jim O'Neill, we appreciate you being with us, and we'll talk to you again real soon and hope to see you real soon.
Oh, I appreciate it, Scott. I enjoyed it.
The only way to take Silver and Black Today with you is with a radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Make sure you treat the mothers in your life well today. All right, well, today, unfortunately for us and unfortunately for you because of his radio goodness and all of the value he's brought into this show, and we do really mean that sincerely and appreciate what he's done. Kelly Kriner is leaving us after today. He's got some other things going on, and he's exploring some new adventures. And Kelly, we appreciate, man, so much of what you did here on the show and how you're able to always keep Chaz and I honest for all the stupid things that we say occasionally. But I know folks are going to miss you, man. But talk to me a little bit about what this has been for you and being able to talk football on the radio, because it's a game you love, and I know that's very close for you.
You know what? It's been weird because this is not something that I ever thought I would do. When you first brought up a couple years ago about me coming on the show and just talking draft, I was like, sure, okay, It had never, I had never thought about, I want to be on the radio or I want to be a writer or deal with sports. It's always just something that I enjoy, So for me to be able to come on there, every Sunday, talk Raider football, it's been great. I've had a good time, and I thank you for giving me that opportunity. But it's, and just because, I'm moving down the road doesn't mean that, you're always a phone call away. So it doesn't mean like I'm going to be disappearing completely. Who knows? I might have to call in every once in a while, keep you guys on your toes. But yeah, I just want to thank, everybody that listens, everybody, got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of negative feedback. Either way, I don't mind because I enjoy talking football. It was a great experience, and it's something that I'm always going to finally look back on.
Well, that's good to hear. And I know for us, too, like you said, you always tell it like it is, man. And people don't always want to hear it that way. And you have strong opinions that are based on your knowledge of the game and following everything from college to pro football. So I always appreciate it. And I think probably 99% of the listeners did. And even the ones that disagreed with you liked that you were on here because at least it gave them something to get fired up about. And I know a lot of people, sending us questions about what's Kelly going to be doing. And I know you're kind of in that that point where you're going to be deciding that pretty soon, and hopefully you'll still be in Las Vegas. But if you're not, like you said, we'll definitely get you on when it comes to draft coverage and making sure that people stay in touch with you. And I know following Kelly on Twitter at Rating the Draft is always good too, because Kelly is good with one-liners and good about keeping people honest. So make sure you follow him there. But again, man, we appreciate so much, and I know Chaz, you feel the same way. It's always been fun, and during breaks, the conversations we had were always a good time, weren't they?
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. He, talking Raider football is my favorite thing, and for Kelly to come on and you and I are just a couple of knuckleheads that want to talk football, and for him to come on and keep us honest, like you said, and it just makes us step our game up that much more because of his knowledge and because of how well spoken he is about the game and across the board. Really appreciate that, and you're going to be missed on the show, and hopefully we'll see you soon down the road.
Yep, absolutely. And he knows I'll be bugging him who's this college player and what's his strengths and his weaknesses, because Kelly's like an encyclopedia when it comes to that stuff. So Kelly, man, again, thank you so much for your contribution here. We'll always appreciate that and look forward to talking to you down the road.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Like I said, it's been great. I will miss you both. But like I said, I'm always just a phone call away.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that concludes this show. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. We'll be back next week, again at 8 o'clock here on CBS Sports Radio 1140. And as always, Raider Nation, may the autumn wind be at your back. Take care, everybody.